A Shovel's Open Doors, a new, truly global show where we discussed real issues of injustice, discrimination, and oppression from around the globe. And over here, we try to find solutions by taking your voice into account. Hosting the show would be Rahul Dubey. Rahul, naam to suna hoga. Rahul is an Indian-American entrepreneur based out of Washington, D.C., who became quite a hero during the Black Lives Matter movement in the US. He sheltered and fed 70 plus protesters at his own home and showed the world what a little bit of humanity can mean. Let's have Rahul take over and do the rest.
Thank you so much for having me. I wish I was joining you with a more human, more uplifting conversation. But what's happening around the world, what's happening in our nation's capital, what's happening in India, South Asia, Southeast Asia is atrocious. It's the last thing I want to be talking about, but it's the most important thing we should be talking about. And I want to start off by saying this. Is brutality human? Think about that.
Their faces were pushed against a wall.
இரவு முழுவதும் அந்த இரண்டு நபர்களை கடுமையாக தாக்கியதாகவும்
and blows were rained on their backs and bottom till it ripped and bled.
Why is the Chief Minister washing off responsibility?
No excuse. We had the
Batons or sticks were shoved up their buttholes.
There's a story that deserves widespread attention.
What took place in Tamil Nadu is unacceptable, even here in the United States. And first and foremost, what I would like to do is talk to Suchi in Tamil Nadu, who has been able to break this story with courage, with empathy, with humanity. And these two souls, that innocent souls who were trying to provide for themselves, for their families, for their communities during a global pandemic, and because of their caste or what they looked like or what they said, are now dead.
I'd like to say right at the start that though caste is like a very, very deep problem within India, this issue went much beyond that. It wasn't really about caste, because today Jeyaraj's family is being protected by Hindus, Muslims, Christians, everybody alike. Everybody has come together to protect and to help that family out. But what happened in South India was more of a display of ego and power, which is very similar to what happened in George Floyd's case, which was not just discrimination against a black person, but also a display of power to the extent that they make their own laws, they make their own rules, which is what happened in South India as well. It just went a little bit further here because the father and son were picked up for no apparent reason, for absolutely no reason, except for the fact that they bruised one of the cops' egos a little bit by refusing to give him a mobile phone on an EMI. They wanted to give it to him on an outright purchase. That was the only reason. And they were picked up, and they were the concerted attempt was for them to make an example of them, so that nobody else in the town would ever look a cop in the eye ever again. Because throughout the beating, throughout the time that their knees were broken and sticks were pushed up their butts and their genitals were mauled and mutilated, and they were thrashed on their backs, and things like barbaric things like tufts of hair were pulled out of their chest. What is that even? And not only did the cops rain blows on them, but they also called their friends over, 5 of their friends over, to experience the party that was going on, because those friends haven't hit anybody else before. So they hit people for the first time in their lives that day, and they hit a half-conscious Jeyaraj and Benicks. So the width and the depth of this brutality is what completely shocked me, and there was no other option. I had to talk about it.
Suchi, definitely, I'm glad that you said that. It goes way beyond that. I'm not diminishing the horrific torture, the last moments and hours of both Jeyaraj and Benicks, and it is unfathomable to me in terms of how we're able to process this. But let's look at the finite. They are dead. This is much further. So tell me, I would love to go over to Aparna. Please, thank you for sharing your domain expertise in terms of the culture there. What is the sentiment? Is it a mob mentality? Is it a police cartel? What is happening down in Tamil Nadu, and then also as a macro level of sentiment in India?
There has always been a constant fear factor that has been pushed within communities, particularly in Tamil Nadu, and not just in Tamil Nadu. It has grown across. It's global. But there is a certain saying in Tamil that says, police station vasalla nikka vechita. which literally translates to you've let me stand in front of the police station or inside the police station. It's the fear factor is so deep rooted in our community that we do fear the police, and that also comes with a parallel going of how we've accepted police culture here is that when you think of something called capital punishment, torture. So here it's all the same. So they would also cover up all of this with politics, with caste, with all of these issues. But it's a sense of authoritativeness. It's that I can do what I want because I create the law.
So how do we take that, Henri? How do we take that? And what happened in Tamil Nadu is nothing close to human.
What went wrong really in the system is that the system in terms of law allows the judicial magistrate to be the first person who is supposed to protect the person who is being brought to be remanded. So Jeyaraj and Benicks is being brought the next morning, allegedly after having a medical examination, where the doctor really went out and gave a false certificate. They are supposed to be produced before a judicial magistrate, and the judicial magistrate is supposed to see them, ask them without the presence of the police whether they have injuries, who caused the injuries, see the nature of the injuries, and then take a proper judicial decision whether these people have to be remanded to judicial custody or sent back to a hospital for treatment. Now this chap did nothing. This Saravanan, a judicial magistrate, did nothing. And the worst, Rahul, is that today he still continues. The magistrate was responsible for most of what took place after what took place in the police station.
So we are absolutely following guidelines of democracy on paper, but nowhere near in practice.
All the norms that had to be followed were not followed.
Henri, I appreciate that insight. It sparked something in me. I want to say that we want to make sure that it's not silent. Suchi, what is going on here rather than just posturing and throwing us, we call it here in the US, throwing us a bone just to keep us quiet for a little bit of bringing up charges. Firecrackers are great distractions. They create a lot of smoke. What are the thoughts on the ground there?
Okay, I have really, really good news. The speed at which this case is moving is going to stun the world, and I've got a few facts for you. I've done my homework and I've put it down for you. For the first time in my state of Tamil Nadu, a cop has been arrested within 10 days of a custodial death. It's never happened before in the history of my state. For the first time in India, 6 cops have been booked for murder, which is 302, and arrested at the same time. It's never happened in India before. Third thing, a constable cusses at an investigating magistrate, one of the constables who was responsible for the beatings, who gets pissed and he files a report. So now there's like judiciary ego into this and they want to screw the police. The cops have been on the run. There were 4 cops who escaped and then they got caught. So these kind of news have been coming in and people are celebrating every single piece of news. They've never seen cops running for their lives. They've never seen this happen. NHRC, National Human Rights Commission, files a case against the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister. Another lawyer files a case in Supreme Court against the state of Tamil Nadu. Friends of police have been banned in 6 districts of Tamil Nadu. Jail inmates have attacked the arrested cops and they've been transferred to another jail. There are videos by victims. It's a domino effect. There's no reversal. It's only going forward from here. This is good stuff. It's really good stuff. As far as my country is concerned, at least it's epic.
But Mecca, the enthusiasm that I hear and the excitement that I hear has always been followed by massive disappointment in our country. Why don't you talk a little bit about where this healing comes in, where we get excited about charges? Just tell me how you're feeling, brother.
It's so similar to what happens in the US, because think about what happened with even the George Floyd case. Like the video came out on Twitter, everybody saw it, and it took days of everybody in every state in the country protesting to even bring up charges against the officers, which makes me think that if we didn't do that, if we didn't apply the pressure, they probably would have just let it slide. I've been pretty inspired by the movement across the country and the fact that it's still going just as strong as it was at the start. You know, when it first started, I thought maybe it was going to die off after a week or a couple of weeks and protests were going to start dying out and all that. But seeing like most of the country come together to fight this cause that everybody sees as a problem. So we just have to keep applying the pressure. That's my point of view.
You have written a beautiful song very early on, right after. It was very raw, very fresh, and I love the fact that you haven't edited it. Do you mind sharing your song with us? Because it's helped me heal, I know that.
We're looking for enemies instead of empathy. Feel like it's something we all lack. When qualified brothers of opposite color apply, but just one gets a call back. Too many people with privilege can see it's a problem, but choosing to fall back. If not taking part, but just letting it happen ain't racist, then what would you call that? It just shows that like privileged people can see this is happening, but until they step up to fight for the people who are being oppressed, no change is gonna happen. Mecca from the 703, that's my Instagram, Twitter handle, so they can look up the thread and see what happened.
He was the one who made everyone aware of what was going down there in Swan Street that night. So thank you, Mecca. I think this is also a point we should discuss. How, as Will Smith said, it's not like the crimes have increased. The crimes are getting shot more often. They're being spoken about by the use of social media, the use of tool. It has democratized the power of information. I think that's great to Mecca. What Mecca did that night, or let's say what Suchi did, phenomenal. We are talking real steps here. We're talking real solutions brought by real people, young citizens of this country. And I think that's great. Rahul, what do you think?
You know what? I think that there's a moment that happened here in the house. I want to go back to Tamil Nadu, but there's a moment of, I didn't pull out my cell phone from 9:18 p.m. to 6 a.m. because leaders like Mecca stood there the minute I went to talk to a police officer, 7 cameras were up. I didn't need to go to my pocket to get my phone. I could focus on talking to them. So Aparna, what I would love to see here is that let's get into solution mode. I thought I was lying for the first 48 hours. That's how powerful authorities' perception in media is. When the police chief called me a liar, I doubted what I saw. Can you tell me what's going on there in terms of this fear changing our minds?
To be very, very honest with you, I would say the fact that you said that you didn't have to reach out for your phone and that there were 6 or 7 people around you that stood up for you then, right? Assuming that were to happen in the streets right here, yes, there would be people immediately recording something far away or so, but there would be very fewer voices that would be raised against what was happening right now. So I think that's a very big thing that we see, because in our culture, as Henri sir had said before, there's a certain form of acceptance with the way things are.
Yeah.
Police brutality is something that's celebrated. In cinema theaters, I can tell you, Henri sir can tell you, there's this movie called Sami, all right? It's back in 2003. There is a line that says, "Na police illa poriki," which means, I'm not a policeman, I'm a gangster. And the crowd cheered. And I remember I was in 3rd grade. And because you can't really draw parallels here almost with the Black Lives Movement and what happened here in Tamil Nadu, because can you tell me that you celebrated that culture back then a couple of years ago? We did here. I screamed in cinema theaters. I'm guilty of that.
First and foremost, racist number one that I admit, because I have been complicit. I have been indifferent. I have been, very sadly, oh my gosh, that's a shame. I should go catch my flight. How ridiculous is that? Now, in America, we can actually go up and raise hell, raise our voices, go with a megaphone. It happens all the time. In India, but the people stop because they've been complicit, and they stop because calling a hotline, posting it, doesn't get us anything. What if we created a central repository? Get your fears out there. Let's create something that's there, and we have volunteers in the United States that don't have that jurisdiction to reach out, to set up chatbots, to inundate Parliament. But what if we went into that? Henri, what do you think if that's something that we were able to create as a central repository? I like to joke, let them shine a bat light into the air and we can come help them.
What happened in Sattankulam police station, in that police station that we are referring to with the father and son duo, is not something that happened to them alone. Now, in our investigations, we are able to see that there are over 12 other similar cases, and I'm sure we just reached 12 cases. There are many others who have been brutally tortured in a similar manner, and with the same youngsters, whatever you want to call them, whether they're friends of police or volunteers, etc. So this is the whole culture that is taking place here. So the point is that people are willing to do and engage in such actions, and it is at this level I think these bridges have to be built between what is happening in the US and what is happening here. And these relationships matter a lot. Passing on these informations to you, passing of photographs to you, passing of some other features that we have collected here for you to keep there And for you to think the same here will definitely make a big mark here in classes that we undertake in human rights education in schools or in the university. I think it is very important for them to know that this is a global phenomenon and we have to tackle these issues not only as a local issue but also as a global phenomenon.
Aparna, I want to actually take this moment to talk a little bit about the solution here. What can we do to organize to help you on the ground, Suchi on the ground, Henri in the courts, debuted in the media?
There's just one answer. It's just to constantly talk about this. It's to constantly raise your voice within your families and constantly stay updated with what's happening on ground as well. Because there's a lot of misinformation that's happening. Even with Jeyaraj and Benicks case, if you take it for example, there were so many WhatsApp conversations or WhatsApp forwards that actually ridicule the family even further. And unbelievably, that was also being circulated around. So I think the first thing for me as a journalist or for us journalists is hold us accountable for the news that we put out, because our jobs right now is to make sure that there is no misinformation, particularly in cases like this. That's the only way where you have the law, you have somebody who's taking it to the common mass, and you have the mass that's responding to all of this. And that's where the whole transparency word would actually make any sense.
I think we're seeing a multi faceted dynamic approach to this, where we're looking at the boots on the ground, which starts with us humans. Then you're looking at the journalists and the media to get that voice out at scale. Then you're looking at justice and the legal system to be able to hold accountability in a pure way, which is never going to exist. A utopian society doesn't, but it needs to bend toward humanity, because brutality, unfortunately, is universal and being human is less universal. To answer the question that I opened up with, brutality is not human in any form whatsoever. It is inhuman, and we need to return to humanity. So thank you for that.
I keep on hearing that this is our chance, so I'm trying to take it. I don't want to waste it, but after 155 years of this, tell me why should I have hope for this nation? I know it's easy to hate and to blame, and we not responsible for education. I also know bashing the